Chernobyl is the name of a city located in northern Ukraine. In the early hours of Saturday, April 26, 1986, a disaster arose within the Chernobyl power plant. An explosion and fire released large quantities of radioactive contamination into the atmosphere, which spread over much of Western USSR and Europe. This explosion caused 30 people to die immediately, but countless others have died from radiation symptoms ever since. Chernobyl is considered the worst nuclear power plant accident in history. To this date, the Chernobyl nuclear power plant zone of alienation is an exclusion area around the site of Chernobyl nuclear reaction disaster, and is one of the most hazardous areas with radiological contamination. Now, it is highly difficult for scientists to collect nuclear energy after such a large nuclear explosion like it is Chernobyl. Scientists have simple methods of cleaning up radiation by storing debris and collecting and disposing contaminated soil. Scientists can also monitor the levels of radioactivity in order to protect humans, animals, and plants. But other than those simple methods, scientists must play the waiting game. While some radioactive elements have a short life, other radioactive elements take millions of years to decompose, which is why most nuclear facilities are highly regulated. To this date, there is still no permanent way to contain, dispose, or neutralize nuclear energy. Nuclear energy is highly dangerous because it is deadly, causes cancer, and genetic mutations. There have been many cases in the past that prove so after incidents involving nuclear energy. A nuclear explosion is the result of an uncontrolled chain reaction that is caused by a close proximity of atoms. A nuclear chain reaction occurs when more than one nuclear reaction is caused by another nuclear reaction, thus leading to an exponential increase in the number of nuclear reactions.
Exponential growth is used to describe some type of increase in something. Some examples of real-life situations where exponential growth is used would be in the finance field. Bank accounts with sum of interest are the perfect example of it. Also, the growth of bacteria is an example of exponential growth in population. Exponential decay is more about sound, light, dangerous chemicals, etc. But it also means the drop of something. Therefore, an example of a real-life situations where exponential decay can be used is the sound decrease from a distance to another distance. For example, when you leave a party, the sound starts to decrease quickly, but it takes a long time for it to be in complete silence. Even more so, every day in our classrooms we use projectors. Projectors are the perfect example of exponential decay due to the fact that if the wall and the projector are at a close distance, the image would be displayed smaller. But if the distance between the wall and the projector is bigger, the image would be displayed bigger.
Exponential growth is a constant rate of growth applied to a same base over a period of time. The exponential function is represented as f parentheses x equals to a to the x. This function can also be represented in a graph as the next examples. Some characteristics of the function and the graphs are that the result will be greater than 0. The domain is always all real numbers. The range is all positive numbers but never the 0. The graph crosses the y-axis at 0, 1. And every graph that is a function needs to pass a vertical line test. Whenever the a is between 0 and 1, the graph will be decaying, and this is known as the exponential decaying. The use of nuclear energy have advantages and disadvantages. One of the few advantages is that it is possible to generate a lot of electrical energy in one single plant, and the disadvantages are that it exists a huge problem of radioactive waste. There is a high risk that accidents can happen, and many others disadvantages. We consider that the nuclear energy is clean because it is a source of energy that produces a very small amount of greenhouse gas, This greenhouse gas is a gas in the atmosphere that absorbs and emits radiation. In Mexico, there is a nuclear plant which is located in Laguna Verde, Veracruz. The nuclear plant follows all the safe protocols as all the nuclear plants in the world, but there is still risk because everything can happen in there. We also disagree with the fact that there is one in Mexico because it makes very damage to our planet and put in risk the life of all the Mexicans and all the people around the world.
The Chernobyl incident could have been prevented. There was a lack of process control system. This plant was created for military purposes, therefore the plant was designed to intake a constant load of plutonium, which was dangerous. The second was the Soviet Union wanted to use manual operators that did not understand process. The operators lacked the understanding and knowledge of working in a plant and also did not understand the inverse response. After the explosion happened in Chernobyl, the Soviet Union did not share this information with other countries and tried to solve these problems with themselves. This caused the pollution and radiation to spread further than it needed to because the Soviet Union did not accept help from other countries. According to the National Geographic documentary, Meltdown at Chernobyl, the incident released a toxic cloud that not only affected Europe but spread across Asia and America. Areas of Europe were contaminated by this incident. Belarus, Russia, Ukraine were the most affected by the radioactive materials. Even if some radioactive elements will transform to be stable, some will take a very long time. Some consequences will happen in the environment in agriculture sector, bodies of water, human health, and forest. In agricultural sector, most meats and milks taken from animals will have a high level of cesium than other animals. Radioactive materials were deposited to bodies of water and decreasing rapidly during the first week, but fish absorbed radioactive iodines that increased radioactive cesium and passed it along the food chains across Scandinavia and Germany. Today, fish in open bodies of water have a normal level of cesium and strontium. However, fish in closed lakes have a high level which will continue for decades to come. Forests have taken a high uptake of radiocesium. Foods from the forest were recorded and then were found with high levels of radiocesium, particularly mushrooms, berries, etc. This level will continue for several decades. The use of nuclear weapons have devastating consequences on Earth. An example is that it changes the climate and destroys the ozone. Nuclear weapons create thick black smoke which lofts to the cloud level and into the stratosphere. This creates a block of sunlight in the stratosphere where the sunlight hits the upper part of the atmosphere and destroys the ozone layer. With this destruction of the ozone layer, humans will now intake a higher level of ultraviolet light which burns more easily people. Another incident with the one in Chernobyl was the Fukushima Daiichi disaster, which was created by an earthquake. Most of what happened in Chernobyl could have been prevented. If it wasn't for the chosen workers that did not know what they were doing, none of this would have happened. Unlike the Fukushima incident, the Chernobyl disaster was taken lightly by the Soviet Union and killed many civilians. Both these incidents had similar consequences in the environment. Fish and their food chains in bodies of water were affected. Forests and animals now contain a higher level of cesium for decades to come. Our proposal to solve this situation is to learn from our previous mistake. When working with radioactive materials, professionals must be present to avoid what happened in Chernobyl. Nuclear war must be avoided because of the similar consequences and the destruction of the ozone layer.